tweet out there was going to be a reaction. Come on. You had to know.
I didn't give a shit, though. I don't really give.
You know, when I saw this, I thought to myself, this right here is actually one hell of a white pill. Then I looked at the fact that they fired Sam Ponder, and that told me that maybe it's a white pill and a black pill. Then I found out they fired RG3, and I found out that it was really two white pills and a black pill. Just more and more confirmation of the direction that ESPN is trying to go. However, there is something there that's holding them in place, keeping them from fully going off the rails. And that right there is what we talked about in this video here. So how in the world is it that Kirk Herbstreit was able, or how I'd say allowed, to post a tweet that, let's just say, was a tweet that would be responded with good old-fashioned common sense, even though there are obviously people out there who were calling him a POS for the tweet and basically saying what the hell the right thing would be to say in this case would be, the common sense thing to say in this thing. It does make you kind of wonder exactly how it was that he was able to get away with it, where someone like Sam Ponder, who had the exact same thought process, didn't get away with it. Make sure you guys stick around for the full video, because I'm going to try to explain all three situations in this video. RG3, also Sam Ponder, and of course the main topic of the video, Kirk Herbstreit. It's going to be a relatively lengthy one that I did not want to be too lengthy, but make sure you guys stick around for the full bit. I'll explain exactly what's going on with all three. So why was Sam Ponder, why was RG3, why were they fired and Kirk Herbstreit has not been fired? Well, that right there is what we're going to be talking about in this video. But before we get to that, we got to provide a little bit more context on this situation. By the way, there are going to be a couple of updates at the end of the video, so make sure you guys stick around. This is going to be kind of me clamping down something I said on Wednesday, but we'll get to that here in a second. So Kirk Herbstreit, if you guys remember him, you probably already know him because of College Game Day. And of course, college football is starting back up, but you may remember this little bit from 2020.
I think the black community is hurting. If you've listened and the word empathy and compassion over these last 4 months, how do you listen to these stories and not feel pain and not want to help? You know what I mean? It's like wearing a hoodie and putting your hands at 10 and 2. Oh God, I better look out because I'm wearing Nike gear. Like what? What are we talking about? And so
obviously somebody was forced to do that. Somebody was obviously forced to fake tears or whatever at a time when an agenda was being pushed. But we'll talk more about that in the latter half of the video. Like I said, it's going to be a relatively lengthy one for something that, quite frankly, should not be that lengthy, but stick around. And now Kirk Herbstreit is deciding to sing a different tune, the tune that he, quite frankly, should have been singing the whole time. Now, Kirk does explain his rationale here in a second. It's pretty obvious. He just stopped caring. That right there is the reason why it is that Kirk put a tweet up simply asking the question, should men be allowed to compete in women's sports? Of course, you get the common sense answer, that right there being, no, they should not be allowed to. Of course, YouTube will probably limit the ads on the video now, but at this moment in time, I really truly don't care. They've kind of censored the channel so much to the point to where nothing is getting out. Still make sure you guys hit the like button anyways. But still, though, at the same time, this right here is the position that every person should, in fact, have. But, of course, we do have loons out there. So how in the world was Kirk Herbstreit allowed to keep his job, not get fired, where it is that Sam Ponder, on the other hand, got fired? Now, I want to go ahead and preface this first before we go any deeper. I'm going to talk more about Sam Ponder here shortly, and it's going to kind of seem a little bit weird. But Sam Ponder, she seems to be the more traditionalist woman that works at the network. Obviously, very attractive. She got married recently. She's got kids. Sage Steele came out and said something in support of her. I actually think what Sage Steele said in her little let's just call it Facebook Live video, which I'll post for you guys here in a second. She also put Twitter as well. Sam Ponder's not going to be out of work for a while, but someone like RG3, on the other hand, someone like Robert Griffin III, I don't see Robert Griffin III getting a job after ESPN let him go unless it's back with ESPN itself. Some people immediately started making fun of RG3 over this photo that he posted with his wife to Twitter. I don't know if that right there is what it was that got him fired or not. But then again, at the same time, given the fact that RG3 is willing to carry the woke line, it makes you wonder why it was they would fire one of their soldiers. Well, a lot of it's because RG3 just flat out sucks. This was the same guy who told the Dallas Cowboys like a year ago to draft Shadir Sanders to completely rebuild their team, get rid of all their players. And by the way, I'm the Cowboys fan, and quite frankly, I love watching them suffer, but still at the same time, anybody with half a brain knows that you would not completely deconstruct a team and then draft Shadir Sanders as your quarterback going forward. I think people are just simply tired of it. When you look at RG3, what you think of is you think about a guy who had a career that, quite frankly, was going to be good. And then all of a sudden it fell apart, mostly due to injury. But it also fell apart in large part because of his own attitude. RG3 itself is an extremely special story to explain. That's one of the reasons why it is I'm going to leave this video from KTO in the description box for you guys. I don't want to go too far into it. It's going to make the video too daggone long, and I'm already off topic as it is, and I don't want to get too far off topic before we get to the actual meat of this video. But before I get back to Kirk Herbstreit, let me go ahead and take care of the Sam Ponder stuff. So after Sam Ponder was fired, Sage Steele, another person who's also had to deal with the politics at ESPN, she posted this.
Bee in DC like 100 years ago, and back then she was still Samantha Steele, so we were like, oh yeah, we're twinsies. Sage Steele, Samantha Steele, we look exactly the same too. And we've been connected at the hip ever since, mainly because of our similar values and our faith. Samantha has taught me so much about God, about scripture, about the Bible, about not giving up, and about standing tall. And you know what? She's done that for the last several years at ESPN, even when it was hard. When I was still there, we talked about it all the time. And I just need everyone to know this is a brilliant woman, an incredible mother who has also made me a better mother, for sure, Sam, don't deny that. And I'm so excited for her future. It's so scary when you're in it and you don't think there's any way that you're gonna ever be okay. Sam already knows that this is such a blessing that God is bestowing upon her, because there's so much more for her to do. And I'm just honored to call her a dear friend and so damn proud of what she...
Sam Ponder, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke up her rear or anything like that. I'm just simply saying it like it is. She's not hard to look at. She's pretty easy on the eyes. Sage Steele knows this, and Sage Steele knows that Sam Ponder will be able to get a job anywhere. I mean, my God, I wish they would actually replace Colin Cowherd at Fox Sports with Sam Ponder. That's the guy who, quite frankly, should not have a job in sports if you ask me at all. I mean, this guy is absolutely nuts. Don't get me going too far about him, but the fact of the matter is this right here. Sam Ponder obviously got fired for having the exact same opinion or the exact same feeling that Kirk Herbstreit had. I also want to say that Sam Ponder recently had children, so obviously when you have children, things kind of change. When you're single and you're liberal, and of course to go on top of this, you don't have any additional responsibilities, you'll be like, yeah, it's okay for people who identify a certain way to do this, that, and the other. But then when you have children, you start to think about things, it changes stuff. Next thing you know, you start to come back more towards home, and you realize that it's a situation that's affecting a lot of others could in fact affect you at home. So guess what? You'll start to change your mind. Either way, though, Sam Ponder she won't be unemployed for long. If anything, she'll have a job probably before the end of the year. I'm going to go ahead and call it now. But back to Kirk Herbstreit. I utilized the clip from 2020 when he was breaking down and he was crying earlier to kind of make a point. You see, back in 2020, a lot of people were just kind of putting on a face because that's what the network wanted. They had a certain agenda that they were pitching. And of course, they are still, in fact, pitching that same agenda. However, recently, people have been fighting back against that agenda. It's another reason why it is that I feel that the culture war going forward will begin to shift back to common sense. ESPN is about to lose. Many people out there have reported on how it is that ESPN is actually losing money left and right. However, Kirk Herbstreit is somebody that they, quite frankly, may not be allowed to, let go. Dean Corso, those guys there, the old hats, everything, people who are still connected, people who've lost their lives over the years, people who have died. Those people, obviously, ESPN is probably not going to care much about. But, of course, when you have someone like Kirk Herbstreit, who people do, in fact, tune in to listen to their commentary, it makes it much, much harder to actually let that person go. Why did Kirk Herbstreit actually have the balls to say what it is that he said? Why it was that he had the balls to post what he did, realizing he was obviously open for attack? Well, let him explain.
Used to give a speech, and one of the things he would say within that speech is he's like, don't ask me about race, religion, or politics, or don't talk publicly about race, religion, or politics. And now I think that's all anybody talks about is race, religion, or politics, and so I've tried to just, you and I've texted. I mean, I've tried to stay on the sidelines for a lot of that, but you can only take so much until you you want to start to speak up a little bit, and actually say what you think. But when I retire or get in a position that you're in, I'll be able to say what I think a lot more.
You had don't come on here and bullshit me. You had to know that when you put that tweet out, there was going to be a reaction. Come on, you had to know.
I didn't give a shit though. I don't really.
That is because of
I'm done giving any shits at all about any of it. When it comes to, it's almost like there are two different sets of rules, and if you have a view that's a little bit more traditional, or I'm a Christian guy, it's like there's a different set of rules for that viewpoint, and it's hard to just turn the other cheek time after time after time. So yeah, I didn't really care, and I don't care at all, which is a good thing. I think it's good and healthy to get to that place, compared to, oh gosh, I don't want to get canceled. I don't want to get people upset. I don't give a shit. I'm just going to say certain things. My problem is I have a temper. And so if I get to that point, if that fuse gets...
Well, there are two sets of rules. I mean, the fact of the matter is that Kirk Herbstreit just stopped caring. I mean, but the truth be told is that once you stop caring, once you actually get to that point to where you just feel liberated, you can say whatever you want, that right there is when people start to take notice that they just stop pushing you. That right there is the real truth about life. It's part of the reason why it is you never bow to the mob. Well, if he'd have told people how he really felt back in, 2020, then he probably would have gotten fired from his job. You're probably thinking, why did you not do the right thing before? Well, you probably had a lot of people out there threatening. There are some people out there, well, actually, it's really most people who live in the real world where their paychecks are determined by what the company says. What I got from that was I've been forced to keep my mouth closed for so long that now I've got an opportunity where I can actually begin to say what it is that I want. Now, there will be a correlation to this that Jason Whitlock covered, but we'll get to that here in a second. No more F's to give, no more craps to give. This guy just, quite frankly, did not care anymore. Now, back in, I think it was 2016, 2017 timeframe, they had issues with Curt Schilling, and they fired him. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys now that this video here will be put in the description box as well to kind of help explain that situation there. Curt Schilling, many people think that Curt Schilling got fired from ESPN because he was a conservative, and while it did not help him out, I think it was more the fact that he was opinionated or openly opinionated. I think there's actually a lot more to go along with Curt Schilling's firing, but people love to use that to kind of prove that ESPN has an extreme left-wing bias. They do have a left-wing bias, but there were other reasons to let go of Curt Schilling. It's not the best example in the world of why it was they let him go. The truth be told about Kirk Herbstreit is that Kirk Herbstreit probably feels a little bit emboldened due to another incident at ESPN, which is why I turn it over to Jason Whitlock, because he had a very interesting theory, which is really not that interesting of a theory, but a theory that could actually explain why it is that some people, especially some more on the more Christian conservative side of the aisle, aren't as scared to speak their mind.
I'm just going to give a quick answer. Ridiculous question. Of course not.
You had don't come on here and bullshit me. You had to know that when you put that tweet out, there was going to be a reaction. Come on, you had to know.
I didn't give a shit though. I don't really give a shit at all. I'm done giving any shits at all about any of it.
So I'm going to throw you a tiny curveball that I didn't tell you this morning. You know who I think is responsible for Kirk Herbstreit talking that boldly?
Pat McAfee.
Take one guess. Oh, exactly. That's exactly what is.
Pat McAfee. Okay, now I'm going to play the other half of what was said, and then I'm going to come back on the other end and tell you why, yes, Pat McAfee is definitely a factor, but he's not a direct factor. But let's roll the other half.
Give Pat McAfee credit.
Yes.
He has made Kirk Herbstreit go, hold on, man. They're paying me a lot of money. They don't have anybody to replace me. I can say what I want, and if people want to get upset about it, what's ESPN going to do about it? They don't have another Kirk Herbstreit. Their college football coverage would go in the toilet. And so, yes, Pat, I got to hats off to Pat McAfee for giving guys over at ESPN a pair of balls. And I hope that others over at ESPN follow if they're bulletproof, Troy Aikman's bulletproof, Joe Buck's bulletproof,
I don't fully agree with that, Jason. I agree only to a certain extent, but I think what's really going on is something that I mentioned earlier. A lot of people, quite frankly, were being told to keep their mouth shut. You're not allowed to talk here, okay? If you say this, you're probably going to get fired. I do believe that McAfee has something to do with it, but not in a direct way, but a much, much more indirect way. I do give the man credit, obviously, because him being there does change some of the culture at ESPN. But remember something, Pat McAfee had his own platform going into his contract at ESPN. Now, it's very, very possible that ESPN at this moment in time is losing money in television revenue, but they're gaining a lot of views when it comes to YouTube and social media. Pat McAfee would, in fact, be a big part of that, just saying. Last year, Pat McAfee had gotten into it with ESPN producer Norby Williams. Actually, it was earlier this year. My bad. I apologize. Earlier this year. Norby wanted Pat to take Aaron Rodgers off the air, not let him come back. And there was even a bit there, and I even did a video on this, where Aaron did, in fact, essentially get told, look, you can't come back. You're off the air for the season. Only to then turn right back around and show back up the very next week on Aaron Rodgers Tuesday. Now, there are some people out there who do a very, very good job of explaining what's going on in the world of sports and all the backroom politics and all the wokeness and all the crazy agendas these people are trying to push. And one channel, of course, is Behind the Line. KC is a very, very good channel. As a matter of fact, my channel in the early going was a lot like his, but then I got ultra political, which, of course, that'll come up with the updates in a second. The thing is this right here. The overall numbers for the Pat McAfee show, as far as the ratings are concerned, are not very good. His ratings have actually been kind of down. But the thing about Pat McAfee is that Pat McAfee still brought a following with him. That following, of course, is here on YouTube. I still listen to McAfee from time to time, and I'll probably start listening to him again here soon, especially when we get more into sports. Of course, we've also got an election going on too, so it's going to be kind of odd. It's going to be kind of funny how we navigate things here. But still, though, the point is this right here. Pat McAfee is still pulling in a lot of views on YouTube. Now, those views obviously are still going to generate revenue, not just for him and his crew, but it's also going to generate revenue for ESPN. So therefore, they can't fire Pat McAfee because they realize that Pat McAfee's worth a lot of money. Now, you're probably wondering how it is that Pat McAfee connects to Kirk Herbstreit. Well, they do College Game Day together, and to go on top of that, the mere fact that Pat McAfee is basically given some sort of carte blanche. In a lot of ways, it kind of is. Obviously, someone like Kirk Herbstreit, who is Christian conservative with some form of common sense, who's been forced to kind of hide his opinions over the years, it kind of seems to me that maybe there is a correlation here. While maybe not a direct correlation, definitely an indirect one. What's really happening here is that Kirk Herbstreit looks at exactly what's going on with Pat McAfee, and that you're going into a contract re-signing, and he says, look, Pat McAfee being here and being on College Game Day kind of allows me to be a little bit more myself. I think what happened in this case was that Kirk Herbstreit simply said the right thing, which of course is men should not be allowed to perform in women's sports. ESPN fired Sam Ponder because they could obviously afford to get rid of her, which is kind of anti-woman, especially anti-family woman. That's kind of jacked up there. RG3, he got fired because, quite frankly, like I said before, RG3 just straight up sucks. Kirk Herbstreit knows that he more than likely is not going to get fired. He'll get a talking to, but at the end of the day, Herbstreit can do exactly what he said there on that episode of Outkick. I don't care. I got no more F's to give. So piss off. He knows that with Pat McAfee there, indirectly being at there, indirectly affects him, which of course means that Kirk Herbstreit can actually begin to start saying what the hell is on his mind. However, that does not mean that ESPN at some point in time will not try to punish him. So I'm going to keep up with this story a little bit further because I have a feeling that we're probably going to be getting a lot of crap this college football season, especially when it comes to ESPN commentators. But I did tell you that there were going to be some updates, so let me go ahead and get to that. I want to say it was Tuesday or Wednesday's video. I put out a video with some updates at the end explaining the rationale behind what's going on this year as far as the content is concerned. If you do a video that mentions Kamala Harris, then that YouTube algorithm kind of bogs down. I'm not the only content creator who's had this issue. Several others have had it. Even some people with bigger platforms, Google has found a way to censor that. Now, they may even censor this video here just for mentioning that person's name. But still, the point is this right here. the YouTube algorithm is doing a lot of crazy stuff. And obviously, as a content creator, you look at your analytics, you look at what works and what does not work. And what I've decided to do is that because it's the election, I'm going to continue on with some of the political takes that I've been putting out. However, I'll probably cut back on them. It's like instead of releasing like 2 or 3 a day, like 1 a day. And I'll try to give you guys 1 take a day, a lot like what you guys just heard now with Kirk Herbstreit, something sports or pop culture related. The reason why is because I think most of you guys actually prefer to listen to that content there. And of course, we're going to be going back to it. Now, starting next year, the goal this year was to go ahead and start putting those video essays out, but obviously, having to get surgery, and I got to go back in and get surgery again this year. And obviously, I've got to get surgery on my leg. Health stuff has kind of forced me to be away from the computer a lot more than I need to be. However, that stuff is still coming. I just have not figured out whether it will be on this channel or whether it will be on one of the other ones that I've created. It's probably going to be on one of the other ones I've created. And this way, of course, becomes the daily channel, the main channel, but it's also the daily one. I'm just telling you guys what to expect the rest of this year and going into next year, going ahead and doing it now. You'll probably get more updates as the year goes along, but it's probably going to be me just simply repeating what I just said now. With that right there being said, though, tell me what you guys think in the comment section. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section, and I'll see you guys later.